Okay, 5th time trying to shoot this video. It messes with my head. It's very difficult. I start rambling. I'm gonna try not to. Your writing prompt, I want you to react to the ways that I'm about to show you. So Thomas Aquinas tells us that there are 5 ways for understanding that God exists. Now, keep in mind, we are not talking about a Christian God at all. We're not talking about a Christian God. We are not talking about Zeus. We are not talking about any of those things. We're not speaking religiously at this point. We are speaking scientifically and biologically, okay? Now, I am going to squish these 5 ways kind of together a little bit and kind of into a simpler way of understanding, because the jargon and the vocab and the language of philosophy is incredibly difficult. It's like speaking another language. So I'm going to try to translate it as best I can for you. This talk needs all of your brain cells. So call them forward. Ask them to be here with us right now so we can talk about this. Okay. See, I already got distracted. We're going to be fine. I'm going to try to keep this video short. I'm going to stop rambling. Okay. So Aquinas talks about the existence of God, not Christian, not religious, just something greater than us, something outside of us, something that is already fully in its perfection, something that is unchanging, something that needs nothing. That's what he refers to as God. And he sees their evidence within biology, within science, within the way our universe works for saying, yes, there has to be something else. So his first ways, I'm going to kind of bulk together 1 and 2. One is the ways of movement of the universe. And he talks a lot about actuality and potentiality in their different states. Don't worry, I'm going to explain that. And the second one is efficient cause. That means that you needed something to cause you. You needed your parents. You needed your parents' parents. You needed your parents' parents to have food, water, sunlight, health, etc. for you to exist. For you to exist today, you need so many things that are out in nature, okay? This is also going to bleed into the third way. We're not there yet. But first, we're going to talk about the efficient cause and the third way mushed together, and we're going to talk about actuality and potentiality and infinity first. So what is infinity? It means goes on forever. We say there is an infinite amount of numbers because if you think about it, the numbers can always keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That's infinity. Now, when we talk about creation, when we're going to use the example of a sunflower to make it easier. So sunflower is going to be what we talk about for this to help us comprehend it better. Now, so when we talk about infinity and we talk about things existing, everything goes through a state of potentiality and actuality. So what does that mean? For a sunflower, when a sunflower is actualized, biologically, scientifically, whatever, when it is in actuality, that means it has grown to its completion, it has produced seeds that are going to produce the next generation. So myself, I was actualized when I produced children. Okay, again, we're not talking about religious stuff here, we're talking about a more biological, philosophical way of understanding a God's existence, okay? So at actuality, that sunflower produced seeds, success. You guys are in a state of potentiality. You have not yet produced offspring. You have not yet completed that biological thing that you need to do to perpetuate your species. Now, when we talk about that sunflower, producing a sunflower seed, could a sunflower just poof, come into existence? If we look at evolution, if we look at, whatever theory that you follow, or maybe you haven't even thought about it yet, but when you do think about it, how did we come to be where we are? In evolution, did things evolve automatically into a state of actuality, full-grownness, or did they start out as babies, or in this case, seeds? So the idea of actuality and potentiality pointing us to God is that we need something that was already fully complete to produce things that could not produce themselves. Example, if we go back, so let's say that this is modern day, so this is today, and I always worry that this is going to show a mirrored version. So anyway, sorry, I was off screen. This is today. This is the creation of our universe 14 billion years ago. So I'll do 14b here. 14 billion years ago. We are going to pretend also that sunflowers always existed. They have not. But we're going to pretend for the sake of making this talk easier. Now, could we go back to the beginning of our universe with a seed being produced by a grown-up sunflower that came from a seed that was produced by a grown-up sunflower that came from a seed himself that was produced? We cannot go back to the beginning of the universe or the beginning of us with a seed of sunflower just coming into existence. We cannot go back to the beginning of us with a full-grown sunflower just coming to existence. Every single thing in nature that is living has stages of actuality where they are full-grown and potentiality when they have everything they need to be, they just haven't grown up yet. So we cannot go back to the start of everything and have something come into existence as a seed. We cannot go back to the beginning of us and have something come into existence as a full-grown sunflower. That is what Aquinas says points us to God, okay? Now, that's hard. I know I briefly went over it in like 4 minutes, but again, feel free to Google this stuff too or ask lots of questions, but make sure that you respond to these, okay, for your writing prompt. Now, when we start to talk about efficient cause, this is very, very similar to there having to be something in pure actualized state, in perfection, in a place where it doesn't change, it doesn't need anything. That's what we're calling God. Because efficient cause is when you can't cause yourself. So we're talking about that sunflower. It did not come into existence as a full-grown sunflower. It did not come into existence as a seed. It couldn't create itself, though. It could not create itself. That is what we're talking about when we say efficient cause. Nothing that we see in our universe that we can observe can create itself. None of the beings, none of the living beings. A plant cannot just create itself. You could not create yourself. There are a long line of things that took place so that you yourself could exist. Thousands and thousands of people had to exist to create you. And if one of those things was thrown off, you would not be here, okay? Now, when we start to move on to possibility and necessity, which is the third way, again, this is difficult. So this is what it means for contingent beings. This is another big vocab word. We are contingent beings. Every single thing, if you look out your window and you observe things that are living, all of them are contingent. What does that mean? They all need something to keep them alive. I'm contingent because I need food, water, oxygen, sleep. I need certain things to keep me alive. So the possibility and necessity means it is possible, especially in infinity, for one of those things that we need to exist to not exist. Now let's talk about infinity for a second, because this is difficult. First, ask yourself, do I believe that the universe is infinite? Or do I believe that we are our universe is infinite into the past and to the future? Gosh, I hate this. This is so hard to explain. But ask yourself that. Do I believe in infinity? So what does that mean? This circle is us today. If we believe that our universe will exist forever, that means you believe in infinity to the future. Now, if you believe that our universe always existed and was not created, so you're saying, I don't believe in the Big Bang Theory or whatever other theories, or multiverse or blah, blah, blah. If you believe that we have always been, that means that you believe in an infinite regress, infinity into the past. Here's the problem though. If we exist in infinity and it is possible for something to not exist or to have, we're contingent beings, we need things. If it's possible for something we needed to not exist, it would not exist. So I know that's hard. Think about music for a second. This is kind of a side tangent, but when we talk about music, there is a finite amount of music that can be produced. So say that a song is limited to about 5 minutes. There is a finite amount of songs that could exist. You could take every word in the human language, every song created, it's going to be a huge amount. And you could even add at different intervals, different sounds, all the sounds at different intervals. And there's still a finite amount of songs that can exist. Now, when we talk about infinity, we need to understand what that actually means. That's forever. Now, infinity, getting us to present day, is another difficult topic to grasp. So for example, let's say that me opening a flower shop represents today. So I have 15 flowers that I need to count before I can get to opening day. Can I do it? I can. Say there's 1,000,000 flowers. It would take me a long time, and hopefully I'm immortal, but I could count them all and get to opening day. Now let's say there is an infinite amount of flowers. Could I ever count all of the flowers and get to present day, get to opening day? I could not. So that is another conundrum that comes up with an infinite regress into the past. So, all right, moving on. If that one bothered you, then welcome to the club. So we are actually going to talk about the fifth way before we talk about the fourth way. And what the fifth way is that unintelligent beings act to an end. So we've talked about the sunflower. The sunflower does not have a brain, but it acts towards an end. Its goal is to produce more sunflowers. So when you plant it in the dirt, how does it know which direction to shoot out its which direction to shoot out its roots and which direction to send the sprout? It reacts to gravity. It reacts to temperature and gravity, and it acts towards an end. Now, something else that's really interesting is, so coral that we're killing because, people are cool. Coral produces dimethyl sulfide. That may not mean anything to you, but it's really neat. So that gas is produced by coral, and it causes cloud cover. So coral reefs are actually, they are functioning towards an end, and they are creating something, even though they are non-intelligible beings. They are creating cloud cover. Now, something else that when we look at this, like this way of design, this planet, the way that things act towards an end and the way that things are integrated in itself. And we also pull in a little bit of like our contingency in this too, showing how everything is so intermingled. But the way that you breathe is inside of your bloodstream, you have iron. You have the hemoglobin that the oxygen attaches to, and it moves throughout your body. The only reason that you have iron is, I ask people, I'm like, where do you get your iron from? They say their food. Well, yeah, but there's actually someplace else that iron comes from. The only way that you can get iron is because stars have exploded. Exploded stars is what gives you the iron that you need in order to be able to breathe. So there's so much beauty in like the design of our planet. That was not that did not fit in what I'm trying to explain. I just thought it was cool. But when we talk about unintelligent beings acting towards an end, let's look at our gravity. Do you ever take for a moment for granted gravity? Like think like, man, when I'm walking around tomorrow, when I step outside of the school building, I really hope gravity's still functioning, or I'll just fly off, into space. We don't worry about that. But there are rules that the universe governs itself by, and they're non-intelligent beings that govern themselves by certain rules. Aquinas again says this points us to a greater being, to God. Now, the final way that we're going to talk about is gradation. And this is one of the ones that gets confused often, especially by people like Nietzsche's and what the heck is his name even? Dawkins. It's because they didn't understand it very well. They didn't read it very deeply. But when we are talking about beauty, goodness, truth, fairness, etc., every single one of us, inside of us, wants fairness. We seek beauty. We want authentic love. We seek perfection. But the thing is we have never once been exposed to any of those things in perfection, yet we seek it. Aquinas refers to those things in perfection as God. Again, not religious God, the greater thing. And so when we look at ourselves, have you ever had that moment maybe where you were happy, everything was going okay, but you just didn't quite feel like you were home or where you needed to be? It was this unsettled feeling. It's, as Aquinas says, because at one point you were exposed to home. and you are seeking it. Basically, that home is in that perfection that he calls God. Every single one of us have at one point seen something that we're like, oh my gosh, that might be the most perfect sunset I've ever seen, or the most perfect, beautiful flower I have ever seen. And we stare at it and we're like, maybe it's not perfect. Maybe that color could be more vivid. There's, that beautiful sunset that I was looking at. If I look over here, there's like a bunch of trash on the ground. We can pick things apart and recognize that they are not perfect. The reason that we can do that is because we have an exposure or something innate in us that leads us to perfection, which is God. So he calls God all of these things that we hunger for, that authentic love. None of us have ever experienced perfect, authentic love on earth. Your parents cannot perfectly love you. Your boyfriend, girlfriend cannot perfectly love you. Even your dog cannot perfectly love you. At some point, that dog's gonna get ticked off and bite you, or you're gonna put it in a bad mood. At some point, there will be flawed love, but every single one of us want that perfect love. We seek it out. And Aquinas says that peak perfection is what is God. So to kind of briefly run back through this, the last way, the fifth way, was design. That natural bodies and unintelligent things act towards an end. They act towards a goal. They maintain a goal as if they're being directed by, like, as Aquinas says, he says it's like an arrow being directed by an archer. So like gravity, how it makes that divot in space, and our world revolves around the sun. Things behave a certain way. Sunflowers seem to know, I need to grow this direction based on gravity. I need to shoot my roots down this direction. And then when we talk about possibility and necessity, especially in the way of infinity, it's possible that one of the things that we needed to exist didn't exist or doesn't exist. And the fact that it does, we point that to God, because you are very contingent. You need a lot of things for you to have been here. And then we look at the efficient cause. Every single thing needs a start. Every single thing needs a cause. Nothing can cause itself. So there has to be at least one thing in existence, and we're calling that one thing God, that doesn't need anything. That's fully complete as it is. That integrates with way number one, which is the motion, okay? So again, we all start out as little babies, full of potential, full of potentiality, and we grow up into adults. We're actualized as an adult, but we cannot go back infinitely into the past as baby, adult, baby, adult, baby, adult, baby, adult, because an adult cannot just come from nothingness. A baby cannot come without the adult, okay? So something perfectly actualized that needs nothing must have started that chain of motion. So I'm sorry if this was confusing. I'm sorry if I stumbled over certain things, but to the best of your ability, again, keep religion out of this for right now, but looking at this, I want your reaction to these 5 ways. You can pick one to really focus on, but let me know how you felt about this, because this also helps me know where I'm going to go with future lessons. So sorry, this video was longer. This video was a little bit more difficult than other ones we're going to have in the future. So just know that. It's also the longest video you're going to have. So just know that. And if you have any questions additionally, just let me know. Bye.